A potom tam týpek zobral proste nejakého to 3D printer robota, čo mal proste dotykové pero a normálne proste to ťukalo. A teraz bol to poskytovateľ Node.js z nejakého dôvodu. Ale
Ty vole, to si asi nikto nepovedal, nie?
Pustíme si Node.js na robotovi. A proste normálne otvoril Node.js konzolu a teraz tam pustil nejaký skript a otvoril to Angry Birds a vlastne to reštart, a hral to dokola, proste Angry Birds. A teraz týpeka počas neviem čo, do tej hodiny nachodil ovláč pre Xbox controller a tam som postihal s Xbox controllerom napojený na toho robota a tým som ovládal tú ruku, ktorá potom hrala Angry Birds. To je úplne mega. Ste overengineer Dubai. Fakt mega. No ja, to fakt to si mohol prísť tak ovežil.
No. Čiže musí vymyslieť, čo tam bude dospieť.
Tak záleží od toho, či tam príde.
No však práve.
Niektorí nevedia ani, čo je ovirt. Som sa rozpal nejakým JBosakom a že... Ovirt? Čo? Rever? To je z Red Hatu? Čo to robí?
To je další session chat. Hey, you have Lightning Talk? No. You have. You have your own computer?
No.
Cool. Then nothing to solve right now? Who's the next? Which one?
Rád sa podľa mňa spýtam basketbal, lebo není pochodom, si vedel, že to existuje.
V tom Red Hate to je také dosť... Toto je ten cockpit, vieš, to je... BaseOS...
Dobre, spýtaj sa na to, čo to náhodou nevie. A možno o tom vie a z nejakého dôvodu fakt nič sa to... To má možno nejaký problém, ktorý
máte dávať na flash, kde je prezentácia vlastne.
Alebo to proste nerobí to, čo on potrebuje, ale proste s ním tam porozprávame. A prípadne možno do toho môže niečo potom robiť, akože niečo dlhšie.
Minimálne to story, že to môžem použiť.
Minimálne sa nebude môcť si stať, že... Zaskúšajte, áno? Tak počkaj, tak ja si skúsim.
Čo tam je?
Neviem,
Musíme čo dojde.
no, bolo tam čo zaujímavé než DF-ko evidentne. Takže...
Toto.
Počúvam za mnou, keď bude už prieš.
Tak prídeš na mobil,
Ja
nie?
som to chcel, aby tu máme kde?
Na kompe. Či nie, tu. Pozri si.
Chcel som prísť v jeden okamih, ale neviem, kedy ten okamih príde, takže by si ma zavolala, keď ten okamih príde. Fedora, úplne bielý OS. Tak.
No tak. Jasné. Dobre, keby niečo príde.
So it's like
Yeah, I'm with it now.
so you can start.
Can you go to the end, if you can hear me?
Yes, they can hear you. They can hear you.
Yeah.
So you can start.
Okay, guys, so it's lightning talk time. So our first speaker, Jan.
Yeah, thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is John Chilhan, and I will talk about DNF roadmap, what we have accomplished in DNF, what we are currently working on before Fedora 22 freeze, and what are the plans for the next year. For those of you who don't know what DNF is, it's package manager that would replace YAM. So the current state is that we still are trying to be as much compatible as possible with YAM, and in some cases we are not, but it's documented. We are mainly compatible by command line interface, main config, and repo files config. There are over there 20 DNF plugins written now, thanks to the fact that we are using C libraries. We have support for weak dependencies, which are the evolution of RPM packaging that would solve many packaging problems. With regard to downloading packages and metadata, we have a tool that continuously adapts to the responsiveness of mirrors. We made the documentation better. We improved it by adding examples, tutorials, and also we added new functions to the API. Currently, we are working on making the DNF more stable. We are porting YAM utils to rewrite it to DNF and using DNF API or plugin DNF API. We are aware of the fact that DNF error messages from DebSolver are not so helpful, so we are working on this and we're trying to improve that. Also, there are some cases that in depth solving, the actual set of packages in transactions differs in YAM, so we are also trying to fix the selection of provides. For the next year, we would like to make the user participate in using weak dependencies so he can configure whether he wants to install them or not. We could add a new command that would install recommended packages of some package, make it more configurable and pleasure user experience when someone removes a package. Then if in under transaction some package recommends that package, it would not be installed anymore. We're trying to do more and more plugins, and by doing so, we would actually, if we notice any common pattern in these plugins, we would put these functions into separate package, DNFlib, so the other plugins can use it as well and maintain only the one code base. We also would like to do a tool that would actually avoid downloading metadata 3 times for YAM, DNF, and PackageKit. So we will download it only once and synchronize between these tools, these data. And the next one is that we will hopefully have a support of complex dependencies in RPM, so that are Boolean expressions that would make the packaging even more advanced. Yeah, the last note is that I would like to invite you to the DNF workshop. If you have any tool that relies on YAM or is using YAM plugins and you wanna use DNF, you can go there and there will be a whole DNF team that could provide individual help with your use case. So you're free to join us. That's all for me. If you have any questions. Yeah. Yeah, this job of Florian, he had a workshop yesterday, and these are just Boolean expressions that could be in some requires or big dependencies.
There are two talking sections, and there's a discussion in between. So if you don't have the full 1.5 hour time, so you can skip the discussion. Because the Boolean expressions are basically the second part.
Yeah. The question was from there? No. So thank you for attention.
Hi, I am Luboš Kardoš and I working on RPM. The other guy who is working on RPM is Florian Festi, the leader developer over there. And I want to introduce a new feature of RPM. That feature is RPM file triggers. Okay, what are file triggers? File triggers are very similar to normal triggers. I mean the triggers that are in RPM for a long time. The difference is the normal triggers are fired when some package is installed or uninstalled. But the file triggers are fired when some file is installed or uninstalled. You can specify which files fire trigger by a path prefix. And all files that match that prefix, in other words, files that fired that trigger are passed to standard input of file trigger script. So you can do more fine-grained filtering of files inside your file trigger scripts. What's the purpose of file trigger script? Basically, simplify packaging because file triggers enables to get rid of some postscripts. You don't need to have the same postscript, the same code in all packages, but that code will be in file triggers package of some in file trigger script of some package. One good example is ldconfig. ldconfig is in postscript of every package which contains dynamic library. These postscripts can be replaced with file trigger, which you can see on the slide. Which type of file triggers do we have? We have two main types of file triggers. Per package file triggers and per transaction file triggers. Per package file triggers are executed for every package which contain file that starts with file trigger path prefix, and per transaction file triggers are executed for every package once per transaction if the transaction contains some file that starts with file triggers path prefix. File triggers are further divided into installation, post-installation, pre-uninstallation, and post-uninstallation triggers. This list of file triggers maybe is not final. We will see if there will be demand for any other file triggers. So what is done? Now I implemented file triggers as I described, and they are available in RPM upstream Git. I tested the use case with ldconfig, and it seems to work. But we need to test more test cases to be sure that we are able to replace the most common other scripts, most common other postscripts with file triggers. We also realized that we need to to have some priorities between file triggers and other scriptlets, and priorities between files triggers itself. But we believe that we will solve all issues and the file triggers will be available for packages in short time. That's it. Any questions? I don't know right now.
I don't think that we want to make this kind of changes in a RHEL release, but you can talk to your product manager of your choice. But the thing is, this is clearly targeted for Fedora, and as a result, in RHEL 8.
Per package is no, one per package if that package contains any file. It doesn't matter how many files.
As you get the number of files at the file names passed in by standard in, you could in your scriptlet like filter it or do some smart thing to narrow it down further depending on your use case.
There are two types of file triggers. You can define if you want to be run once per package or one per transaction.
How do you handle failures of scripts?
Which?
When a script fails, what do you do? Out of this, whatever.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Those scripts, they're executed, right?
Yeah.
Fail, what happens? They are not supposed to fail.
The
thing is, these are scriptlets as any other, so the same rules apply as apply for other scriptlets. And usually you had it in one script and you could handle some error cases, right? Now you have several scripts. Yeah, but the thing is, you have to choose if you want to do the work per package or have to. Think about it. Well, the thing is, you have to think about it when you actually implement a trigger and handle the cases on a per implementation case, clearly. Most of the triggers will probably update some kind of caches, so failure is not that critical. But the cases that we have are typically very easy, very simple within the distribution. I know that there are a few customers who do crazy shit in their scripts, and yeah, you need to, I don't know what to do with them. The thing is, yes, RPM allows executing scriptlets, but you are supposed to write them in a way that they don't fail, and basically, if they fail, you're responsible within your script to do something. You can fix it up later, and maybe leave an error message. That's not RPM business, because RPM is actually just offering the package a way to execute a script. That's what it's all about. That's all it is.
I don't do that much packaging right now. I wondered how widely are the current triggers in RPM used in Fedora?
They are used very, very rarely. We have discouraged them because they're tricky to understand, because they're basically used for some corner cases where normal PostScripts or normal scriptlets won't cut it. And so most cases are actually should be doable with normal scripts, and that's what we do all over the place. So yes, this is a new approach, and you need to have a new mindset. Like, there are other scriptlets that are run that I have to keep in mind if things go wrong, for example. But the thing is, what I like very with these file triggers is they actually will be located in packages where they make sense. So the ld-config trigger will be part of glibc or something like this. The trigger that updates the icon cache will be part of the library that's actually using it. So it's basically actually moving functionality from everywhere to the place where it, in my opinion, belongs to.
So, second follow-on, how widespread do you expect this to be, or is it still be just corner cases and things like glibc, or?
I guess this will affect like a couple thousand packages.
In that case, is there a, well, you mean directly by taking all these pieces out?
Yeah.
But not as if a couple thousand packages will have these triggers.
No, the triggers will be much more rarely. Basically, you go to the Fedora page about scriptlets or script snippets, you count the snippets, and that's basically the number of triggers I expect to have. So there may be a dozen in the system or something like this.
Well, is there a performance overhead to, you're going to have to do all these matching against every file that gets installed, so every package that gets installed?
We do so much work with the files, who cares? The thing is, you can actually save quite a lot scripted executions by executing update on some of the caches just once. And actually it turns out, we did measurements a while ago, I only have it briefly in my mind, that a lot of time during installation actually used up in scriptlets. Colonel, I'm looking at you. But there are also a lot of small scriptlets that every time you spin up a shell and do things, and it takes time a lot.
Okay, so any other questions?
No time for other questions,
Yeah,
sorry.
we are out of
Next
time.
speaker.
So thank you for your attention.
Hello. So my talk is about the Fedora security metrics, and I am Siddharth Sharma. I work for Red Hat product security team in India. So what is the objective for having Fedora security metrics is we should know how to defend our applications, and it's about whenever you get some CV or anyone is trying to write an exploit for your application, it would help you proactively to write a code where it would defeat the attacker before he would try to write any exploit. So that's the thing, to defend against such threats, we should know about armor and weapons in our arsenal. as a developer, it is our job to know, like, if we would know about the security features that we already have in our distribution, it would cut massive amount of advisories that we have today. So this is Fedora security metrics which I have been working on, and it's the wiki page. So I have maintained this across like from RHEL 3 to the Rawhide version with all the security features that we have, and I might be missing some because we have like a lot of packages and a lot of security features which are implemented. So something like you can go on the wiki page for the Fedora and search for Fedora security features matrix, and you will find things. So these are some of the features that were added to Fedora 21. Built with format security, built with stack protector strong, and the crypto policy. And there are a couple of others which were also implemented in Fedora 21. And if you want to know about these security features, please go on the metrics and follow the link. So what I usually do is when I add any feature to the Fedora security metrics, I also add text about it, how we can use it, or how it is implemented in the OS. And it has to be the community-driven event, since there are like a lot of security features. So if I miss something, and if anyone comes across that is missing over there, it's a Fedora wiki page, so anyone can update it. Any questions? No? Yes.
So how do you actually determine the features of the package? Do you scan the packages?
So I usually install the distribution, and then I check across the distributions whether like writing some test code or something, or if there is any particular configuration that is added or the patch that was added, then I look through the SRPMs when it was built, and the same version is available in that distribution or not. Any questions? More? Yes.
So are there any upcoming security features for the next Fedora release?
So I don't have any idea about it right now, but usually what happens is whenever I see something built on the Rawhide, or on whenever some maintainer proposes anything on the Fedora wiki, I just track them. So the latest was like Fedora Stack Protector Strong that we built on the Fedora 21, and for Fedora 22, I am not so sure about it at the moment. How much time I have? 4 minutes. More questions? I think that's it then.
Where is our next speaker? Miroslav.
So hello everyone, I'm Miroslav Atkerty, I'm from Red Hat Quality Assurance. I'm a Red Hat Quality Assurance engineer, and I would like to introduce you a relatively new tool that is available for developers and testers to make your packages better. It's called RPM Grill. So what is it? It's a tool for sanity testing, Koji builds. What is important here to say is that it can test only whole Koji builds, that is RPM, source RPMs, and the build logs that Koji, the Fedora build service, produces. What is meant by sanity testing? It takes only it extracts the RPMs, SRPMs, and only looks at the content of the package. It doesn't do any execution or anything around. Yes, it was previously a Red Hat internal project, and now it's open sourced. It's packaged in Fedora 21, but you can install it also for Fedora 20 from RPM that is built, but it's not in the distro. Yes, and what I want to mention here is not a replacement of RPM lint, because it is testing over Koji builds. It can detect some more problems that RPM lint does. Of course, there is some overlap in some tests, but it's not big. Okay, so example of what tests are included in RPM Grill. For example, some specs file sanity checks. It can detect, for example, that there are some non-UTF characters, for example. Maybe not so important. Of course, some improper usage of macros. Multi-lib checks. This is more interesting. So, for example, when I looked some multi-lib checks results for Zorba package, I found out that in Fedora 20 there is a Zorba package that has multi-lib problems when you try to install it via YAM. So these problems are detectable. There are also tests for there are some ELF checks. So one of the tests can check if your binary is compiled with partial RERO, or for set with binaries, full RERO is required. I think in packaging guidelines. So you can see failures like this there. And there are some byte log tests as RPM Grill takes as input a byte log. So, for example, if there are some nasty high-risk GCC warnings, so you can see them in output of the tests. So how can you use it? Actually, it is a CLI tool, but we have already a preview interface up and running that is hooked to Koji, and it's already testing all the builds for all the current Fedora releases. It looks something like this. So when I took it, it's a little bit small. That's better. For example, there are some recent builds that have been tested. On up is, for example, Subscription Manager. You can see that there are a few tests that failed. Actually, the tests are there are separate test modules like ELF checks, man pages, desktop links, and they contain some few subtests that they are tested in the test module. So you can see, for example, here that that daemons should be compiled, for example, with RERO, and for example, for ARM, it's not present. I'm not sure about RERO on ARM. You can search for your package, or you can search for errors on this simple page. When you would like to see the help, man pages are for each module available. So there you can see some description of what tests, what are they doing. And when you hover over these items, you can see also some help around. Yes, and these two are not really interesting. Okay, so if you would like to use it locally, this is some guide how to use it. As I said, for Fedora 21, it's already in the repositories, and for Fedora 20, you can install it from Koji. First, you have to, with the RPM Grill fetch build, you have to download the Koji build. There is a separate tool for this in the package, and it downloads the RPMs as RPMs byte logs for that package, and then you run RPM Grill on that folder actually that it creates. The output of the output of the testing is in YAML or XML files or JSON. YAML is quite nicely readable. It looks like something like this. Okay. So Taskotron integration. There was some effort to integrate RPM Grill with Taskotron. For example, RPM Lint already has their test. It's currently stalled, but we are now working with Fedora guys to resurrect it. And before that, I would like to make the test more mature, as there are a lot of false positives. So we will try to hunt down these bugs and these false positives, and hopefully it will be less noisy about some not really important or minor issues. So check it out. File bugs maybe for the tool or for your components. Hopefully it will make your packages better. Some questions maybe? Okay. One more time, sorry. Oh, sorry, I don't.
Is it intended that passing these tests should become a gate?
Yes. It would be really nice. It would be really nice, but the tests are not prepared yet, so they can't give you like pass or fail for the package. It's taken from, maybe they're at an internal project from what is taken off, and there are a lot of false positives. We want to hunt it down, and it would be very nice if it would get into this state. Yes. Yeah, so the error you were speaking about was from the desktop file validation, like tool. Yeah, of course, if there would be a need to get a pass-fail, this would be something that like an information. Of course, it is not really important to have that fixed. Of course, error stuff and so on, that would make it fail. So, currently no plans for this, but when it would get to the state that we were speaking about later, so it will be needed. Okay. Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Network. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Peter Canik from Hungary, and community manager at Brabit. which is upstream for syslog-ng, and I'm also one of the packagers for syslog-ng in Fedora and Apple. First, I guess most of most of you know that logging is recording events on a computer. Here is a typical SSH log, and syslog-ng is an enhanced log daemon with many input and output possibilities and very flexible configuration language. Actually, this is why I'm making this presentation, as it's quite flexible, quite logical, but at first very difficult to get started. At least it looks so. So I will prove you that it's not so difficult as people say it. This nice picture is about Babelfish from Hitchhikers. This is just a joke, that comparison that for those many input and output possibilities that we could probably forward logs from just about anywhere to anywhere. So how can one install syslog-ng? The core is in Fedora and in Apple, but there is also a build in Copper, which has always the latest and greatest version, and also has some experimental modules from the syslog-ng incubator. Here is the URL, and there are many sub-packages, as it has a syslog-ng. The core doesn't have much dependencies, but being able to communicate with many sources, destinations requires many external dependencies. So you can search this way. So here is how the configuration in Fedora and Apple looks like. It starts always with a version number of the syslog-ng and some global options. After that, one can define sources. This is the default source system can automatically find all the system-specific sources, like it can decide if it's a systemd with journal or with devlog or similar things. Internal is for internal syslog messages. This is a typical for UDP syslog messages from the network, and so on. The next one also needs to define destinations, where the results are written. In the default configuration in Fedora, there are only 5 destinations, but there are many more possibilities. There are many possibilities to filter these logs, which helps later to route the messages, or kernel for the log messages, authentication logs, and mail, and so on. It's quite flexible. And here is the part of the configuration which glues all of the previous things together, the log statement, where one can connect the sources with destinations and apply any filters along the way, or there are many other possibilities, like message parsing, so one can parse out important information from log messages. One can rewrite log messages if required by compliance. Syslog-ng can deal with JSON-based logs, both on the input and the output, send messages to all different kinds of databases, can do alerting, message queuing, and many more experimental features are included in the incubator, module incubator. Do you have any questions? And you can see on screen few useful resources, our web page, some tools based on syslog-ng, a log analysis tool, ELSA, an alerting solution based on syslog-ng and Riemann, our mailing list where most of the communication is done, or you can also find us on IRC, and my blog and email address if you have any further questions for later on.
What's happening between syslog and Journal-D? Any plan?
Yes, in version 3.5, which is in Fedora 21, it uses the syslog compatibility socket. Version 3.6, which I used in the configuration example, that has a journal source which can read directly from the journal using the API.
So everything ends up in syslog?
Yes. And from syslog, you can, with syslog-ng, you can do centralized logging, which you cannot easily do with journal-D directly. Or you can do any kind of filtering, database storage, and so on, as previously. Any other questions? Thank you.
Can you hear me, guys? Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate that in this late hour you are still sitting here and not being, anywhere else, because it was really, packed 2 days with talks, workshops, and everything. So, thanks for your attention up front. My name is Václav Tunka, and I work as a senior software engineer working on JBoss EAP, which is basically the Java EE application server. But you can be really calm if you don't really prefer Java, because this talk has nothing in common with Java. I will talk basically about Git and this Git that we all use. Actually, maybe my assumption is not entirely correct. Can you just put your hands up if you use this Git? Okay, so I hope it's going to be relevant for you guys. So, my claim is that what we are doing, that we are basically using a method from 70s, 80s, 90s. Put your era that you are familiar with. Basically, we are still using the pristine sources in form of tar GZ or like tar BZ2, and basically then we have a lot of patch files which are basically text files that we send to a mailing list, and review is happening on mailing list. And basically then some kind soul, some maintainer is using or was using previously like some RCS or CVS, and basically tons of other obscure version control systems, which had issues like differentiation between committer, author, stuff like that. You all know it. And basically the worst thing about this is the constant hell of regenerating the patch files every time you rebase to newer upstream. So I say this is basically a method of 70s or 80s. And you could say that, hey, Fedora moved to Git or distgit some time ago. I say, okay, that's right. But basically, a lot of folks are still using the distgit like this CVS. Basically, in the first place, the usage of this CVS was really wrong, and it got like a lot of workarounds like the look-aside cache and stuff like that. The most difficult thing about the version control systems on computer languages, in my opinion, is not to learn the syntax, but to learn basically the process that's different, to learn, think in the different concepts. So what's basically wrong about the current system when there is like source plus patches? Like the short version is everything, but you can just take me with a bit of salt, a pinch of salt. I think like the biggest pain is basically that people have to manually archive the upstream Git repositories into an archive, and then basically put the patches in this Git. Why? I don't understand it. And basically when rebase is done, it may happen that half of the patches becomes irrelevant, and you have to manually, or maybe using some tool, generate the patches and then basically put it in Git. I think that there is like a better usage of the developer time. Developer time is precious, and we should concentrate on writing features, fixing bugs, and not like dealing with these obscure systems. I would say that the method for the 21st century is to use the distgit only for metadata. Basically have the source flat file, have like some configuration settings, maybe some common scripts, and then use proper Git tree which mirrors upstream. And I'm going to show you how we do it basically for JBoss EAP or for the Java repositories. We basically have a master branch that mirrors upstream one-to-one. It has all the upstream tags, it has all the upstream branches, and then for each version, we basically take our patches which are on top and constantly rebase them. So Git helps us in the process. We don't need to regenerate, patch files and place them into Git repositories. We basically have, like just something like Git source where we point Git to the proper hash or to the name tag of the upstream repository where our changes are applied. So this is basically the workflow that we are using. For the upstream repository itself, we are using pull or merge request workflows. It can be GitHub, it can be Bitbucket, it can be Gerrit, it can be you name it. It doesn't matter. Important thing is to move from the method of reviewing patches on some upstream mailing list manually. If you want to have automation, and basically the automation has some real big advantages in my opinion. For example, we have only like a board of lieutenants who have the push access. I mean, when we started this, a lot of senior or principal developers, a lot of like the guys who have really a lot of experience said like, hey, I got like this push access 10 years ago, and how so I need to submit a pull request. It's not like to, like take some rights from people, but it's basically to have good proper code review and to enable basically safeguarding by programmatic tests, whether it's unit test, integration test, smoke tests, and so on, when on every commit the developer makes into the repository, there is a Travis CI run, Jenkins CI run, TeamCity run. So it doesn't matter, again, which CI you are using, but it's important to run it. You might ask, okay, we use SRPMs. We want users to, be able to rebuild locally and so on. I think that this is okay. We basically, even that we have the Docker world, we still need to think about RPMs. And actually, as I learned for you guys, it's basically quite interconnected. And I think like what can be done is to basically generate the old model that RPM understands that the patches file automatically from the repository when the SRPMs are created. I cannot tell you like the details. Maybe like this is discussion point for your release engineering. But I think like that it would be really nice if you guys moved Fedora to this new model where basically everything is properly in Git and you use all the advantages instead using the patch files on top of the pristine sources. So my question is like, do you think that we can have it in Fedora? And when?
Personally, this sort of thing is something I've been wondering for a long time. Not written in code, but I wonder what you think of a few of the problems that I've found in my head. What if upstream isn't using Git? What if they're using something horrible? What if they're using nothing at all?
Okay, so if I understand the question from Mike McLean correctly, it's basically what to do. I will start from the end. What to do if upstream is using some obscure version control system? What if they are not using version control system at all? And what was the first half, please?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Okay. Like I think that Git really has a lot of basically wrappers or various tools which can help you create abstraction or above the SVN or CVS or other repositories. Basically, if the upstream is not using the repository, we should really seriously think about making about like basically promoting the way we think it's correct and basically pushing them to some reliable source code versioning, because it's not possible that in 21st century someone is not using a version control system. Sorry?
I've seen upstream projects that are using their own version control system and are not publishing it because they want to have patches for the well-known enemies or tickets.
Yeah, yeah. So I see your hand. I won't forget you.
So the first thing is that it doesn't really matter if they're using Git or not, because you're going to have a tarball per release. You can build the history yourself.
Exactly.
The other thing I was going to suggest that there's another project that has solved this problem already, called Baserock.
Mm-hmm.
And you should look at what they're doing, because they're actually doing that. They're replicating every upstream in a Git tree. And if it's not using Git already, they're going to build their own Git tree for that thing. And they're using it to integrate OS images for automotive.
Okay, so there was a note about like interesting project which basically aggregates all the various upstream repositories. I think this is really cool project, but for me or for Red Hat or for Fedora, the important question would be can we host it ourselves? Because even for Fedora, for RHEL, for all the whether it's project product, we basically need to have our own copy. For example, if something happens with the repositories or with the third party, we can never be sure. We need to have like our own, safe house with all these repositories. Please. So basically, if I understand it correctly, it's that upstream has some binaries or some big, files in their own version control. Is that right? Okay. So I mean, like on basically model image I had for the workflow, we are solving issues like this. By basically applying a customization on top of our repository, and always when we rebase like our customization moves but you know, like if this is in version control, especially in Git, it would get bigger even though, right? So I mean, like maybe the recipe is to somehow filter it when you are doing the rsync or some importing, you know, some mirroring with the upstream, do you know, some kind of filter while saving the history. I think, you know, this is a question of some handy scripts and of documenting it. So everyone, you know, who's touching the repository in Fedora knows that, you know, it has something like that. But I think like it's a technical problem, and I think like as engineers we can find like technical solutions for these problems and still leverage the power of Git in the way it was designed. I would say like, yeah, I mean like, so the reply was that you still need the legacy system we use now basically to handle it. I think like we can handle it differently. You can have look-aside cache for like, if you still insist on importing the pristine sources, that's all right. But, yeah, I see your hand, thank you. But I think like it's just a matter of like writing some intelligent script and managing this, you know, via some filter. So basically in the Git repository that you will mirror, that has the actual upstream code and the modification that are in the distro, you know, is basically proper Git repository. I think it can be solved technically. We can have a chat about it later. Okay, please, sir. Exactly.
So then, all the patches can be moved. Actually, this is only going, I mean, all the commits change. You lose the history between the previous version of the patch and the next version.
Actually, that's not right, because for each of the versions that you know are the basically upstream bases, we maintain a branch. And basically, when the rebase is done, it's basically rebase in a sense that you grab the commits that you know change the pristine upstream somehow and put it on other branch on top. Yeah. So I mean, like it's always like on top of master plus some changes, and you create a new branch. So let's say you are like taking the changes, but yes, it's a rebase command. Yeah. But actually, there are two different things. You know, like the rebase stuff I was talking about was basically the thing that happens on the product repository, or like on some Fedora repository, distro repository. But basically, the other repository you are talking about is the upstream repository where the development gets done. And I propose to use pull request or merge requests. And basically, if you have a pull request, you eventually merge the pull request. So I mean, like to collaborate on the code itself in upstream, it's the best to merge, in my opinion, and to use some like pull request or merge request mechanisms. And then basically to take the tag from upstream, mirror it. I mean, like it's always upstream first, right? Except the security patches. So I mean, you know, if it's, you know, security patch that had to be in distribution first and then in upstream repositories, you basically just create pull request when you release, right? But I mean, like, you know, like upstream repository is one thing, and then basically you have basically the repository that's in the distribution itself, and that has the, you know, model of mirroring upstream plus, you know, applying customization on top. My presentation is online. I put it on Twitter. I can do it again, so you can check the details, or we can have a chat about the details later. Do I still have time?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention.
So our next speaker, Vivek.
You looked at the things we are doing in OpenStack?
No, actually.
So we basically carry.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. You can all hear me at the back? Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Vivek. I work for the GlusterFS team. This is an idea that we have proposed for GlusterFS, the compliance. How do we do compliance using GlusterFS? I have my co-presenter, but he's absconding because he has another show to do tomorrow. Hence, I'm the lone battler here. So the agenda is something like this. What is GlusterFS? What is the motivation? And what is compliance? Probably a new thing. It's more of a business feature. What is GlusterFS? GlusterFS, there was a talk given by my friend Vijay Bellur yesterday. This is, what is GlusterFS? So GlusterFS is a distributed file system which provides a single namespace across machines. It's a usable user space file system, and it could be over InfiniBand or IP. So basically we have a bunch of machines. They all are within a cluster, and they all collaborate to give you a single unified namespace. And this namespace could be accessed over NFS. It could be accessed over Samba, that is CIFS, and it could be used with the native Gluster protocol as well. Just a very brief about GlusterFS. So what are the reasons? Why do we want to do compliance? Well, these are a bunch of reasons. There are requirements from the government, from the healthcare sector, from the financial sector, from the airline sector to retain data, basically to retain data over a period of time, so that in case there is anything we want to discuss at a later point in time, we should be able to come to a conclusion about what was the chain of events and stuff like that. So there was a law that was passed in the UX, I guess the name is Sarbanes-Oxley Act, somewhere in the early 2000s, and that was also a major driver for that. So how do we do compliance now? So basically I've divided that into three parts. One is you have a worm file system, a file system where you can write once and read multiple times. And then you move into the maintenance, the worm data maintenance, and then how do you do worm based on data tiering the way we have thought about in cluster. So yes, so the first phase is a file, how do you make it worm? Basically a file system, how do you make it worm? So the file in the first stage, you make it immutable and undeletable. Basically you don't allow people to either modify a file, and you don't allow people to even delete a file. So after a certain period of time, after the file was created, you don't let any of these happen, and there are a couple of ways you can do it. You can later on schedule it, which can be done either at a volume level or at a share level. And this is how it would look. So you had your normal file, the block in the blue that you see on your left, right? So that was the file that was created. You could read to that, you could write to that, but after a certain period of time, that would again depend on what is the policy you want there. It became a worm retained file. That is the new state we are in. When a file is worm retained, it is immutable, it is undeletable. And then you hold it for a period of time, and then it becomes a worm file where it is immutable, that is you cannot change it, but you can delete it. And then depending on the kind of application you are targeting or the policies that you're targeting, either you retain it forever or you just delete it. And again, deletion has its own thing about data shredding, wherein
you write so many times so that even someone gets that bare metal hardware, he is not able to recover the file. Then comes the data maintenance phase. So once a file becomes immutable and undeletable, but there is still a chance that you might want to read the file at some point in time. There might be just a litigation about something. You might want to read the file. So the data has to be recoverable. The data has to be readable. And there are a bunch of things that we intend to do as a part of the data maintenance activity so that the file is accessible till we want it to be accessible. And eventually, when based on government regulations / policies, when the file has to be deleted, there are two ways. You just delete the file. I mean, just remove the header of the inode of the file, and the blocks are just there. Or you can actually do a shredding, wherein you ensure that the file which is deleted is not accessible by any means. So this is how the tiering would look like. So this is the Gluster volume. So you have a bunch of clients there. They could be any of those, NFS, Samba, or GlusterFS. Then you have an active volume tier. So basically what we have done is we have divided the whole thing into two volumes. One is the active volume tier, which could reside on your nearline storage. It could be an SSD for faster access. And then you would put a passive volume tier, which lies on a cold store, which is offline in a different location altogether. So a file, when it is created, and the volumes, for our sake, we have kept it as replicated. We have replication as one of the features in Gluster. So a file, when it is created, so in the replicated volume, what happens is the file which is created, we have 2 copies of that file in both the bricks. And this is where, and here the active I/O is happening on the file. And after a certain period of time, what happens is when the retention period is, when the file enters the retention period, then you create stubs of the file in the active file system, and the actual file is moved to the passive volume, the passive volume tier. This is just to ensure that there is segregation between those two. And here are a bunch of things that you do as a part of the data maintenance activity. Say a bit rot happens, or any damage happens to the file. You ensure that in the passive volume you can correct all of those, so that eventually, if you require, the data should be accessible. The file should be accessible. And eventually, when the expiry happens, the file gets deleted. There is a reason why we thought it would be good to have a different volume tier, both for active and passive. Obvious ones are, the data is totally segregated. The passive volume, it has its own set of things because there would be an overload there. You don't want to overload your main system with some of this heavy-duty activities like backup and stuff like that. And that is it. Thank you. And this is the feature page we have put in Gluster for Compliance Archive. Any questions? I guess none. Thank you.
everyone? Not too much? Better? Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Tomáš Jelinek. I am working for Red Hat on the Overt project as a software engineer. And today I'm going to present the Overt. And just by the way, how many of you guys already have heard of Overt? Okay, a bunch of you. For those who not, it is an open source data center virtualization solution. So it manages your host on which you have KVMs and all that running virtual machines. And Overt is experimental Android client for it. So it is free open source, of course. It's agentless. By this I mean that you don't need anything special installed anywhere. If you have a vanilla Overt with 3.4 or more recent, and you have a device with Android 4.04 or more recent, you just install Overt, connect it, and it should work. It is communicating with the engine using REST API, pure REST API. On the left-hand side, you see the screenshot of the first screen. So you see on the top part, you have the VMs with the statuses. Under that, you see the event logs and some filters and stuff. And if you click any of the VMs, you can see some details about it, like operating system, processors, memory usage and stuff, and events for that, and some basic actions like stop, start, reboot, and VNC. So you can open a VNC console from your device directly. Other interesting feature is the triggers. The trigger is something that you define some condition. For example, the CPU usage is higher than 30% in this case. And what should happen? So, for example, if your phone should blink or vibrate or something like this. And then, using this simple mechanism, you can monitor your VMs in a very simple way. So I will try to show you a quick demo video to show you what is actually doing it. So this is my tablet, on which I have selected a VM and connect to VNC. So this is the VNC console open from it. You can see how fast it can be as soon as I will succeed to click to the proper place. We are integrating with the BVNC console. We have tried to integrate also with some spice, namely ASpice, but currently it is not working too well, so it's not merged upstream. So as you can see, the video playing is a little bit not so fluent. Nonetheless, it works, and you can use it for some quick troubleshooting directly from your phone or tablet or whatever. Then I will start this this virtual machine, and as soon as it will start starting it. Oh, come on. Think. Yeah, it's in wait for launch state now. And it's set for launch. Yeah, so now let's move to my phone. It's a little bit smaller. It's Moto G. And we'll configure some triggers. In this case, I will configure two, both related to statuses. So if the VM status will go down, or because you can have more triggers per entity, and if the status will go powering down, if I remember properly. Okay. So now back to the tablet and kill this VM to see what will happen. If everything will work, and I know will work because it's a video, then you should see a notification. But wait for it on smartwatch. So here I'm cheating a little bit. It didn't require any additional code to integrate it with smartwatch because it's just using the standard Android. How is it called? Notifications. Yes, right. Okay. So this was the video. Can you see it? Yeah, I can. So currently, we miss one last feature until we can consider it to be release ready, and it's the accounts. Currently, the accounts are implemented in a very, very hacky way, and you cannot, for example, turn off polling, which is not really good. But it is more or less implemented. We just need to really finish it. It is not an official OVERT project. It started as a bachelor thesis of Martin, sitting there. Then one girl from India have taken it over for a couple of months under the OPV project. And let's see what will happen then. But it is under the process of becoming the OVERT incubator project. And it is also under the process of getting to the Google Play Store as an OVERT project. And the future is not really clear. There are lots of ways we can go. One is currently we are using just the REST API, so we cannot use any kind of pushing from the server because the server doesn't support anything like this now, and the REST API doesn't support anything like this. But we may be forced to go this direction, and it's not that it's easy to implement it in an Android world. Other option is currently it's read-only. If we don't consider the start and stop as write actions, maybe it would be interesting to implement some kind of entity editing. Currently, we don't consider the events as something which we should parse in triggers, but it would be nice to configure the trigger in a way that if an event will contain something like critical something, then fire. And other option would be dashboard. That's a pretty big part would be. It would be interesting for tablets. Some nice graphical overview of your whole data center, some charts about the average usage of your resources and how many VMs you have, some most important events, some big overview from high level, big nice overview on your screen. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can grab the project. You can go to the OVERT wiki. This is the proposal for the incubator project. You can go to the project page on the GitHub, clone it, and even download the build. There's an on-site APK you can download from there and use that, or you can compile it from sources. You can contact us on the movert@overt.org mailing list. This has been created 2 days ago. It's good. And you can follow us on Twitter, or you can directly contact me on that email. So thank you, and any questions? Just regular what? No, it is communicating with the OVERT's REST API. Okay. Oh, right. That's a question. Somewhat. Sorry. Yeah. We don't consider this too much, no. Maybe in the future. Yes. Yes.
You still have to launch your own single sign-on. No, doesn't come out of the box.
Okay. Thank you.